And welcome back to another lesson of the Logos and Letters. We're going to press on with this. Now, I did say that we would have another look at some of the stuff we read yesterday, because there is a lot to it. There's a lot of pieces. I've tidied it up. But let's take it step by step. It's not worth rushing over something in such a way that we have a weak spot in our understanding. So let's just quickly go over this again. So, epiton, this is a key word. Pro aire melon. So these are things that have been stripped away. Okay, so epiton pro aire melon apotu peteru to peteroton kai apotu pedeliu to pedelioton. If I can just say one thing here with this, it complements all of our learning in relation to correlatives and substance as well. So chapter 5, even chapter 1 with essence and whatnot. So if I might give an example, so take human beings for example. We have many accidents, don't we? We have all of our particular accidents. We have our inseparable accidents. The fact that we can laugh is a unique feature of us. It's sort of like inseparable from us. It's not our substance, but it's an accident. Now, considering all of this, all these accidents, think also about what we have been speaking when it comes to relations, okay? When it comes to relations. If you think about correlatives and how they relate to two different things, such as master and slave, all right? Master and slave. You think of that. Think of the actual words that we use. Employee, employer, son, father, husband, wife. What's another one? I've had a mental blank on another one, but if you consider those, or double and a half as well, we're thinking about substance. We're referring to a substance. Now with double and a half, it's a little bit different because we're referring to a quantity. But the quantity itself is almost always speaking about some substance. So in a way, that's okay. But just think about a master and a slave for a second, or an employee and employer. They are correlatives. You say the one, and the other one is imagined. Okay? Or mother and a son. The other one is imagined. They're referring to two different substances. All right? Now, consider the fact that all these substances have all of these different types of accidents. Notice in any pair of correlatives that we have in our language, we are not ever assigning the name for the correlatives to an accident, only to the substance itself, right? Our name for the substance. So as soon as you say a master, that's a master. Right, we don't. It's not the slave of the, the biped. It's not the slave of the headed creature. It's the slave of the master. Now, the reason why we don't give a name for a correlative to an accident is because if we strip it away, proai reimenon. If you strip away all the accidents, then you would also lose the correlative. So we cannot have words in our language, pairs of correlatives, that rely on an accident, because accidents can come and go. So you can see how our language and our logic work so well, so harmoniously, even without us really considering it, to cooperate with that truth and that fact of our reality. And our language shapes itself so that it can be reliable, it can be understandable at all times. All right. So a master of a slave, Do I have an artwork that's like a master and a slave? Not too sure. Let's say he's a master and she's a slave. Okay? If his hair turns completely white and the name for him has been established upon his brown hair, then does that mean that as soon as a master changes hair color, that he loses or she loses the relationship with the slave? By no means. That's silly. If slaves weren't called slaves owing to the substance of being a human being and being under someone's lordship or mastery, or just enslaved to another person, and instead, we ascribed it to the fact that the person is 6 foot tall that they're enslaved to, that means that everybody who's 6 foot tall would also have a slave. But it's not owing to that. That's ridiculous. It's not owing to the fact that they're 6 foot tall one day, then they have a growth spurt, they're 6 foot, that they're 6 foot one day, they have a growth spurt and they're 6 foot 2 the next day, or the next year. All those sorts of things, all those accidents that come and go, are not what we ascribe correlatives to. Only to substantial things. Right? And what does this have further implications for? It has implications that our language prefers to communicate about substantial things in important matters such as correlatives and these things, only because they're so stable, they're so reliable. The only time a substance changes is when the substance dies. Okay, that's substantial change. Or in the case of Catholics and Orthodox, we say that at Mass, when the bread and wine is changed into the body and blood of God, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, into his body and blood, then that is transubstantiation. So the substance is moving across from the substance of bread. It retains its accidents of bread. It still it has the look, taste, feel, sight of bread, but the actual substance, like what it is now at a fundamental level, has been changed over. So that's substantial change, and that destroys the bread, except its accidents, and creates the body and blood. So those are the only real examples that you're going to come across in our life, in our experience. Miracles could create substantial change too, but we're not going to go into miracles just yet. That's a very complicated topic, has lots of moving parts. So that comes from here. So if you strip all the things from a winged animal, if you strip everything away from a winged animal except the wing, imagine all the things that you have to strip away. And I'm saying strip away, like tear away because of this word. You would have, on a bird, for example, you would have a beak, you would have feathers, you would have, let's just go down here. You would have its claws and legs and heart and its ribs and all these other things. All the things that make a bird unique, you would have to strip away too, just to get to the wing. Same with a ruddered boat. All right, there's a rudder on this and a keel. To get to the rudder, you would also have to strip away everything else that's belonging to a ship. But if you said ruddered boat, all right, the ruddered boat, the ruddered ship, then you don't have to strip away everything so that the mind can get to the rudder, or that the intellect can get to the rudder. Same for a winged creature. If you call this a winged creature, immediately our mind goes to the wing. Ruddered boat, immediately our mind goes to the rudder. And a rudder is a substance, it's a thing. All right, and same with a wing. A wing is actually, if you separate it from everything else, a wing is then a substance. We always know what it's from by looking at it. All right, we don't think it's not like we forget what it is when it's taken away. It is a substance, and we will learn why that is the case soon. So, thought I'd clear that up there. So, pantaun ta prosti ian per okaios apotidotai. Right. So if it's more fittingly has been received, so Therefore, so all these things, all these words, all these onomatopoeia, all right, the ruddered, the wings, would be more fittingly received. And when we say received, we mean to the intellect, okay, to the mind, to understand what it is that we're getting at. Pros antistrafonta legetai. In regards to the relative, the correlative, okay, in regards to the correlative that is being spoken of. Okay. Epai iange prosto tukon apodidotai kaime prosauto hollegetai. And sometimes we can just by chance, it can be, the thing can be said. So the thing can be said by chance, and it can be received by the mind, and sometimes by chance it can't. Okay, so chance does come into this, language does come into this, just in a general commentary. The understanding of a language does affect this ability. If a person has limited vocabulary and doesn't understand the specific word for different things, that can hinder this whole process. And if someone has a really, really good understanding of vocabulary and excellent etymology, maybe even knows the Old English and Latin and Greek, which are languages established upon, then they have a better chance of understanding what you're referring to. So you can see how language and logic sort of have to work with each other in that case, because of people's differing competencies in language. Lego de hotiude ton homologumenos. So I translated this as like professing, and it does mean that, like homologumen hen baptisma. In the Nicene Creed, they say in Greek, homologumen hen baptisma. We profess, or we admit of one baptism. So again, ton homologumenos pros antistrafonta legomen. This is all connected. I'll highlight it. This is all connected. I think it's a favorite of his. It's called a genitive participle absolute. I'm pretty sure I've got that terminology correct. So of the things that we are admitting of, all right, so I speak now that neither the things that we're professing of are relatives. Kai onomaton autois kai menon. See, he's speaking about the names being established again. Kai onomaton autois kai menon. Nor does it refer. If prostiton symbebekoton apotidotai, right? If you give a accident, right? If you give some particular accident, he's saying that none of this is going to be a real relative, correlative, none of that. Okay? If you give an accident. Why? Because the accident can change. The accident actually probably will change, almost certainly will change. So he's saying right down here, unless if towards some particular accident it is given, kai me pros auto hollegetai, right? And this is the key, and not regarding the thing itself that is spoken about. So if you're trying to speak about a rudder, you have to have a word that has rudder. Like it's that simple. And why? It's a logic lesson. It's a lesson in logic. A, precision, of course. He's teaching precision. But B, it's a substantial thing. And substance and accidents have a huge gravity. They have a huge effect on how logic operates at all. I mean, the differences even between contraries and correlatives is all about substance as well. Because if you think about it, what should I use here? If we have contraries over here, contraries talk about the one and the same subject. So the one and the same subject can be on this side of the genus on this side. So it could be if the substance was, let's say, a sail. All right, a sail. Where's that artwork of a sail? The substance is a sail. It can either be on this side, which is black, a black sail, or it can be a white sail. Right? And it's talking about the same substance on either side of the extremes. Okay? It can be white or black sail. And if you talk about correlatives, okay? Correlatives, it's talking about two different substances. It's talking about Y and X. So father and son, mother and daughter, okay? Oh, we should probably say child, of course, because we don't know. It's hard to assume what gender that child would be when you say mother or father, but father and child, mother and child, husband and wife, employee, employer, master, slave, half, double. Okay, it's talking about two different things for correlatives, two different substances, two different substantial things. Okay, and for contraries, it's only talking about one substantial thing. So you can see our substance even helps us to understand correlatives and contraries, and it's a sort of it's something that you understand if you read between the lines or if you pay attention to the whole book so far. Okay, so the actual lesson here is kind of point blank and simple, sort of just a lesson on precise language. But as soon as you start considering it with chapters 5 and 1, chapters 1 is speaking about the essence of a thing, right? So the substance always has an essence, and the essence has nothing to do really with the accidents. They're two different things. Hoyon ho doulos ian me despotu apo dothei, right? So if you're going to speak about a slave, you ought to reference the master. Ala anthropo e dipodos e hotun ton toyuton. Right, so he's saying, oops, my bad. He's saying that when you're speaking about a slave, you're not gonna you have to reference the master, but you shouldn't reference the man. He's not the slave of the man. It's not by virtue of being a human being that that person is a slave, nor is it by virtue of them being two-footed, bipedal, dipodos. Right? It's not by virtue of that. It's by virtue of being a master. Right? So being a master is a specific thing that you can be. A slave owner, a master, an employer. Okay, it's a specific thing, and it and that is why, and no other reason why, really. Hey, hotun ton toyuton, and all sorts of things of this kind, right? So it does not relate, and he's correlate. So that's what he's speaking about here. He's speaking about these things. All right, don't get mixed up with them. They don't correlate. Ugar okaya he apodosis estin. So this account is not fitting. All right, it's not fitting to say that because someone's got 2 feet, that's why they're a master, and he's got 2 feet, so that's why he's a slave. All right, that animal has a wing, so it must be a bird. That's silly. All the bees and butterflies and moths and insects and locusts. What's another one? Flies, wasps. Okay, they've got wings. They're not birds. Ulgar okaya he apodosis estin. Eti dian men di okaios apodedomen he pros ho legetai. Right? Again, not unless something is fittingly given towards that, regarding that which is spoken about. Okay, so we've covered that. Panton periarumenon tonalon hossa symbebekota esti. Right, so you got to strip away all all these other things being stripped away, the accidents, all these other accidents being stripped away, and you'll get to what needs to be referred. That's the thing that needs to be referred. Again, it's a substantial thing. Strip away the accidents. See it for what it really is. All right, if it's a wing, it's a wing. A wing isn't really an accident, it's a substance. So don't get mixed up before the others. Katalaipo menu de monu tuto pros ho apodel doce o kaios. Ai pros auto reithessatai. Ai pros auta reithessatai. Right, so that's the key. This is the key. Always towards that same thing we should be speaking about. We should always be speaking about that particular thing. Hoyon hodulos ian pros despotein legetai. Periai rumenon tonalon hapanton hossa symbabegota estitoi despote. Right, so he's given an example here with the slave and the master. Forget all the accidents that the slave and the master have. Right, they have their own relation. Now, understand that this correlative is an accident. It's actually existing in their substance at the same time because of each other. It is an accident. It's not just something by the intellect that we understand and we go, oh, that's convenient, that's a helpful way of thinking about it. It's actually a real thing in the substance. Like right now, if you're an employee, you have an accident shared with your employer, right? Some connection. What does this mean for, Christians? Because if you think about it, Christians claim to be, they say Our Father in the prayer. They say Pater Noster or Pater Haimon in Greek. They say Our Father, which means they're calling themselves the children of God. That means they have a accident, a relation with God. And you might think, wait, that would create an accident in God and God would not be perfect. But the trump card is that Christians say that Jesus was God and man. The accident is in Jesus of Nazareth, right? And then there's a substantial relation from the God part of the godliness of Jesus to God the Father. He acts like a conduit, this middle lane where human beings can have a direct accident link to God without causing an imperfection in God. Not that that's possible, but it avoids that trap. So really interesting topic, how this connects with the Christian claim of being children of God, and actually giving that logical ground. I can explore that further in later parts, but just might wrap this up. Actually, this goes on all the way down to there. So let me get this next part done, and then I'll wrap this up. Hoion hodulos ian pros despotein legetai, peria rumenon ton alon hapanton hossa symbabegota esti toi despote. Hoion to dipodi ainai, kai to epistemes dektikoi, kai to anthropoi, katalaipo menu demonu tu despotein ainai, ai ho doulos prosauto reithesetai. So if you strip all these things away, you don't need to think about the two-footedness. You don't even need to think about the knowledge that the master or the slave has, right? And you don't even need to say it's because it's a human being, right? The only thing that's left behind is the fact that he's a master. That's the important part, right? What this lesson is also helping us is a sort of like a motif throughout all of logic. And logic doesn't need to match up with what's comfortable and efficient to think about. Logic needs to match up with the truth. That's it. And a master is a master in a substantial way. So long as that human being exists and the slave exists, the master-slave relationship is always going to be there. If you get sick, cold, hungry, thirsty, weak, poor, tall, ugly, it doesn't change the master-slave relationship. If one of them dies, or if the process which created it in the first place is undone, then it goes, okay? But that's extremely reliable, almost predictable, understandable, and so on and so forth. So you can see the way that is a reliable basis to establish communication on. And ai hodulos pros auto rethesitai. So always speak about the slave in relation to the master. Always speak about the master in relation to the slave. It goes both ways. We've been thinking about just one end. Okay, so you think about it in both ways. All right, I'll leave that there. We'll continue on and probably tackle this big part in the next one. In a couple episodes or lessons, I should say, I'm going to show you how all of this actually is applied to a text. So I'll probably repeat this in the next lesson too, just in case someone misses it. But what I want to clarify is that so far we have been learning new pieces, and I've done my best to show some connections while being brief. But what I think I should do, what would be charitable and educational, is actually show you what happens when you apply what you've learned so far. So just in this stuff from chapters 1 to 7, what happens when you take all of these tools and you apply it to something meaningful, right? So I'll do a lesson entirely for that sake. Hope you enjoy it. That'll come soon. I think I might try to film it today. What's the time now? 5:31. I reckon I could probably film that today and have it uploaded within the next 24 hours at least. So if you enjoy that, that's great, because it's a different side of the coin. This side of the coin is learning and synthesizing, and the other side of the coin I'm going to show you is the practical know-how. It's what you should be able to do. Now, if you don't learn so well just by video and listening, fair enough. But if you learn through written text and this stuff, you might feel more confident. But regardless of how well you learn through different mediums, the point is that all of the logical tools that have been taught, I'm going to show you what it's like when they are applied to a meaningful text. And what meaningful text am I going to use? Of course, the most meaningful, the most talked about, the most read, the Bible, okay? Specifically, the letter to the Hebrews. I'm going to show you what happens when this is applied to that. All right, so that will come up shortly. Hope you enjoy that. And as always, semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam, and I'll see you next time.